So I think I just hope he keeps it up. I know he will. He's working hard.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, if you just join, I just started recording, by the way.
I saw.
So as like a little teaser, we're just talking about Incognito, a producer that Micah is mentoring, and we were just recapping his first year. He's just got about 5 BORs in the last couple months. He's really starting to get traction after his first year. And when I hopped on and asked you what you wanted to talk about today, you said Ian just got rolled. So let's do
The
it on
star.
how
I
what
was gonna say
is
that.
getting rolled and how to avoid it.
Yeah, great topic. And if you don't know who Ian is, because maybe you're just joining us for the first time, he is the star of Diary of a New Producer that you've never seen or heard. We have a YouTube channel that we put out this past year. I think we did like 32-ish episodes or something. He's a guy that I mentor. I'm not his manager or anything, but just mentor him. We talk on like a weekly basis. And anyways, so that was the whole premise of the YouTube series, A Diary of a New Producer. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. Every episode, even if you missed it, you could hop in anywhere. We just talk about real things that we're going through in the trenches that I think are relevant. So yeah, this week, yeah. So what happened? I'll give you guys all some context. Ian had a real nice opportunity, about 20K in revenue. The company was with a direct writer, so he couldn't AOR it. For all you guys that are about to lose your lunch, oh my God, he should have AOR'd this. No, he couldn't do that. So what happened with Federated? We try to get quotes. We have a market that looks good. They renew today, September 10th. We didn't get our quote in until like last Wednesday. So that's the first problem, right? I'll get into the problems and stuff later, but anyways, it's looking really good. He was at first, I think, and the current carrier didn't come in until like Thursday. They finally come in and we're like, I think like 40 grand less. I'm like, holy cow, this is awesome. Well, he kind of first talks to his buyer, the CFO, whatever, shares it, and they realize that they used the wrong exposure data. Ian did, right? So we go back. We're not trying to do anything unethical. Get the right data in there. That increases the premium, but we're still 20K less, right? So we're feeling really good. On top of it, the whole time, Ian's being told by the CFO that we're really unhappy with this direct writer. The service, they're always last minute. It's just we're kind of over them. So this is the vibe he's getting from his person, right? Well, then lo and behold, I get a message from Ian on Friday morning, like, hey, because I was like, hey man, how'd it go? Like, did we get this finalized? And he's like, no, they stayed. They came down, and now they're a little bit less. And he was just dejected, and I felt terrible. I was pissed for him. I was pissed. I was like, man, what could we have done differently? There's a lot here to unpack. I hate using that word because it's so cliche, but there is a lot to unpack here, so I'm going to use it. Um, and so a couple things, and I'll say there's three things that I really take away from this story that I think we can all learn from, and then I'll let you kind of chime in, Trey. The first is it was just too late, and especially when you're competing against, in a quoting situation like this, and they're complaining already about late renewals, and then we're coming in at the last minute. It's just not a good situation. Now, it wasn't Ian's fault. I know he was asking for this, but the buyer just was like dragging their feet and not getting it. And that's kind of a red flag too. And maybe looking back, that's where you draw a line and be like, hey, I need this stuff by this date. Otherwise, I'm walking away. And it sucks to do that. But then look at you save yourself all this heartache and all this time that he just went through these last 30 days. Where if that line would have been drawn, he could have walked away. Federated would have been up. Now, sorry, I just dropped the name of the direct writer, Federated, for all you guys listening. We can't afford an editor here, so we're not going to edit that out. Anyways, they came up, and now if you'd have come back next year or midterm, that could have maybe changed things big time because they would have never then dropped their premium 20 grand, right? So that's one thing, just too late. And second thing, when he went to go present this quote, he couldn't go in person because it was like 4 hours away. He could have went, but it would have been like he got everything late, and then that led to not being able to come in person. And the direct writer came in person to come back, and then they kind of probably talked to the owner, came down, and then, hey, you've been with us forever. Who knows what they said, but they, you know what I mean? They pull on the heartstrings. We've all been there, done that. We've been on both sides of this before, losing accounts, keeping accounts. But I think if he could have went in person, it would have made a huge difference. And then the biggest one though is we can all fall victim to this is he didn't meet with the actual decision maker.
Mm.
And they're the CFO, whatever. They're pretty high up. He says, "Yeah, I handle the insurance. I do that." And this is the hard part. You will get told that all the time. But the owner clearly, because then I was like, "Hey, Ian, so how did it go?" He's like, "Well, he's got to go run it by the owner." And I'm like, because now you've been with this carrier, I don't know, 10 years or
Famous,
whatever.
famous last words.
Yeah, and so Ian's quote unquote decision maker, we'll call him a handler, really, an insurance handler. He had no, you know, authority to really do anything. So he can gripe and complain and tell them they want to leave and tell Ian what he wants to hear, but ultimately he couldn't do anything. He has to get the owner to sign off, and now the owner's not in this. What are they going to look at, guys? They're going to come in there and they're going to look at the price. And there's always a factor in changing, a risk in changing agents, carriers, all that stuff. That comes with headaches and stuff. So it's not always money, but then you get the incumbent that the owner's like, "Oh, they're fine. They're okay. We've been with them 10 years." And all of a sudden they drop their price and now they're slightly less than where we just came in at. What are you going to do as an owner of a, I mean, you can't fault the owner. It's not really the owner's fault, you know? And, and so that's kind of my three things. And I'm going to make a YouTube video on this, put it out there as well. But those are my three things that I think we looking back we could definitely get better at. And not saying they would have changed the outcome, but they could have saved everyone a bunch of time for sure. So I wasn't really involved on it. Ian he's kept me in the loop. Hey, I'm working on this deal. Here's what's going on. I was like, okay, cool. And so from being a mentor standpoint, maybe that was a lesson for me. Looking back 30, 45 days, I should have been more on it. Like, hey, dude, what's going on? We're getting out of this wire here. I think you should bail now. And I'll take the ownership for that. But you know, it is what it is. So
A couple of things I wrote down here. Number one, I'm guilty of all of the above. So not coming
cheers,
from a
cheers.
place of not coming
Here,
from a
here.
place of superiority, but coming from a place of what would the word be? I hate the word empathy, but I can
Too
speak
beta
to
for
it
you or
because
what?
yeah, it's too woke. Um, but I can relate 100%. Um, the in-person thing. I mean, unless I have to get on a plane, I'm going to try to get there in person. It's just something about eyeball to eyeball that makes a big difference. And then the other thing I was going to add is one of the things that I've started, or not started, I've been doing it for a while, but because I made the decision maker mistake so many times, it's like in that first meeting or on that first call, it's like, hey, who else is going to be involved in this decision making process? And because you don't want to ask them directly, hey, are you the decision maker? Because then that's kind of like calling out, are they important? Are they not important? And so that can kind of go over like a turd in a punch bowl. So I like to ask, hey, who else is going to be involved in this decision making process? That way you're still giving them status to who you're talking to. But if there is someone else involved, then you know that. And then as you move the ball along, it's like, I'm not presenting unless all stakeholders and decision makers are involved.
Yep.
So
And
I think I
that's
told you that I mentioned this story a while back, I think, and we were talking about something similar. I was on the phone with this guy and I said, yeah, who, just out of curiosity, who are the other stakeholders or decision makers? Is there anybody that you have to run a flagpole or this, that, and the other? Because I thought I was talking to the son. And he goes, brother, I am the flagpole.
nice. Drop,
I
mic
said,
drop.
"Oh, you're John Smith Senior. Got it. I thought you were John Smith Junior. Yeah, sorry about that. Because I thought I was talking to the son, and of course he'd have to run it up to his dad. But I didn't want to say that. Like, hey, are you gonna have to ask dad about this? So I was
Yeah,
like, who?
that's
You have to run this up the flagpole, brother. I am the flagpole. So, anyways,
I
go
can
ahead.
I can hear his Louisiana accent now. You know, I think Another thing that's I like what you just said about the decision maker stakeholders. I would add to that, um, using the lingo "Are you in charge of?"
Mm.
weeds out the handlers from the decision makers really quickly on that first call without actually, like you said, kind of offending them. And I learned that from Justin Michael. If you don't know who that is, he's a sales trainer, but that's why I use that on my first script, and I've used it because what happens is people are like, it's such a strong word that people are like, well, I'm not. I mean, the boss is in charge, but I help with it. It's a team effort here, and it just gives me some insight. I get to see exactly how the dynamics of that company work. So just if you haven't used it, it can feel uncomfortable. I used to when I first heard Justin recommend saying that in like your first calls and stuff. I was like, man, it's just in charge. It's a very like dominant kind of word, and it's worked really well. Now I don't even feel weird saying it at all. So another thing I think that's important on ground rules. This is something I was taught. So if you don't know, I started my career at Federated Insurance, worked there for like 3 years, but they had really good sales training, and it depends on who your manager was, of course. But I'll give my manager a lot of props because he was a very technical guy, and he really, like, when I say technical, not just insurance technical, but a sales technical guy. And so one of the things that we had talked about was laying the ground rules, right? And I think even Randy Schwantz in The Wedge talks about this, and but we can lose sight of it. And I think it's really important to not, because like in this situation, I look back on it, I'm like, okay, what if Ian would have had a meeting right when he met with him and be like, all right, if we're gonna go proceed, you're with a direct writer, I can't AOR this, so we're gonna quote, but you're complaining they're late, you're complaining this, and you could kind of take control a little bit. You can say, hey, can you agree to a couple things with me? Is one, this takes a lot of time on my team's part, but can we put a date on the calendar now? You renew, September 15th. How about we put September 2nd on there? And if we don't have our numbers in by then, we're out. Either me or your current, you know. Um, and the next thing is, hey, if they come back all of a sudden, you know, I present to you, you get my numbers, they look good, and then you give them to them, and then they all of a sudden drop their price at the last minute. How's that going to make you feel? Like, are you going to do that to me? Or some buyers do, and if that's your style, just let me know now. I'm totally fine if you buy insurance that way, and that's how you operate your company. See what I'm doing there? It's like I'm kind of creating that psychological thing. I'm not, because but it's very upfront. It's very transparent, because they're probably going to say, no, I don't operate that way. I've got screwed myself, and I don't want to do that to you. Well, now they say that to you, and guess what? This whole situation, fast forward, and this happens, they're going to remember that, and maybe they still go back on their word. That's on them though, but it's going to be a lot harder for them to do that. You know, um,
Yeah, it's
and
also easy for the office manager to say,
correct.
"Oh yeah, we." That's why you got to have the stakeholder in there because it's the decision maker.
You're reading
Because
my mind,
ultimately,
man.
he's. Yeah, sorry.
No, no, that's exactly what I was going to say next. I said, but it's a caveat. You have to be talking to the decision maker, right? Lay the ground rules with a weak handler or an office manager, not going to work. So, anyways, and then I thought this made me laugh. You told your story, and then you talked about, you'd fly almost anywhere to have a finalist meeting, or at least do that in person if you can. Full disclosure, I have not done all my finalist meetings in person the last 3 years. Post COVID, it's been a little different of a world. Buyers are way more open to being like, dude, I don't care if you're 3 states away. I don't need to see you. Let's just jump on a phone call, present what you got. But I'm still a huge believer in presenting in person if you can, especially if it depends on your buyer. And if I have the ability to drive there, I will present in person. It's just when they're states away, I'm not necessarily going to fly, for a in person unless it's a huge account. But two quick stories that I think are funny. Where one is where I almost got rolled, and the second one is that I won the account because I think I won in person. But the story where I almost got rolled and was quoting a machine shop. This is when I was at the direct writer. I was less. I got the order. I got everything. We're good to go. It's a Friday. I'm going to Chipotle with my boss. I'm sitting there all happy. Woo! Get to play golf or whatever. It's probably 27, 28 at the time. All of a sudden, I get a phone call from the buyer, and that's never a good sign when you get a phone call. You just kind of know in your gut, like,
Mm-mm.
it was like a day later. I'm like, oh, I was like, yeah. And he's like, hey, the agent come out here, and he threw his card on the desk and yours, and he said, I got all these designations, and this is bull crap, and what he's telling you, blah blah blah. I just need you to tear up the check, Micah. Like, I'm sorry, man. I feel bad. And I was like, dude, my heart sank, you know. And I was like, dude, can I just come on out there before I'm not gonna try to twist your arm, but can I just come out there and talk to you in person? Drove 40 minutes, literally left the lunch, drove 40 minutes, a couple counties away, met in person, retained the account, say won it. He stuck to his original decision. The second story, and so that's the power of being in person. Second one, I had this deal I was competing on with a direct uh, writer. Actually, they were going to leave the direct writer, not Federated, a different one. It was Century, and then it was between me and another agent. Well, I wasn't getting any word back what was going on, so I was like, I'm going to drive there because it was getting down to the wire. It's probably a 30-minute drive. Drive up there. Dude, I see the other agent who used to be on the account before I think like Century wrote it. They're walking out. I duck in my car. I'm just like, shoot, because I was right there. Like you couldn't miss me in my little crafty little Corolla. And I duck. I have all my papers there. And then I like come up and I'm like, okay, I think they're gone. Get up. I walk in there. They come out. They meet with me like, wow, like glad you're here. Blah blah blah. We talked through everything for about 40 minutes. They made a decision to go with me right there on the spot. Signed it while I was sitting there in the office. So I just share those stories to say like if you can go in person, go. It's not a magic formula all the time. You can also screw the pooch if you get too aggressive. So you got to do it in a way that's like uh, respectful and not like pushy or like you know that's gonna like turn people off. So there's kind of a little art to it, but
Yeah, I also think just different strokes for different folks. I'll never forget when I was getting out of pro ball. I went and interviewed with this.
pro ball air quotes.
I got paid to play baseball for the Oakland A's. I mean, I don't know what you want me to tell you. It wasn't the big leagues, but
I'm
golly,
just
get
messing
so
with you.
butthurt about that. I know. I like to just throw it in there. By the way, someone sent me a picture of my baseball card. I think he's a producer,
You made it.
which is really, really odd. Odd? Odd. I haven't seen that in a while, and I definitely didn't expect someone to go dig that up on eBay or whatever. But uh, anyways, the he said, yeah, me. So let me back up. I was interviewing with a um, wealth management firm. Like you go get your series, whatever, and you're like certified financial planner, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, and I was talking to him, and I met one of the owners, and this guy was like, dude, he looked like he got shot out of the cannon when he woke up in the morning. I mean, just caffeinated to the gills, just running and gunning and shooting. And then the guy I was meeting with was very like kind of relaxed or reserved would be a better way to say it. And then the third partner was like Mr. Zen Master, like very like calm and whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is cool. Y'all got quite a diverse team. He goes, yeah, it takes all kinds. We've got, I don't won't say his name, but we've got Jim over here. And, he's a great fit for people that are just like, hey, take me by the hand and tell me what to do. And then me and Joe were very much more consultative and whatever. And so I know we talk a lot about like, you don't have to hard sell or you don't have to be over aggressive. I don't want to say that necessarily doesn't work. I know it's not really our style. I'm definitely probably more aggressive than you are. But if that's your style, you'll attract people to you that are in that vein who need that type of hand holding or who like that. I don't think anything is inherently good or bad with that selling style. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you don't want to be a used car salesman, but there's nothing wrong
Sure.
with asking them,
No,
should get off the pot.
absolutely. No, I think yeah. I mean,
Quite a
I
tangent there.
well, it's honestly something I think about a lot in being in sales because that it almost can sound on the surface when I say this like, oh, you're being fake, but you're not being fake. You're just changing kind of the service, the packaging, but not who you really are. And I think if you can be a chameleon, you can honestly be the best salesperson in the world. Adapt to every buyer. I do this on phone, even on mirroring, right? On phone calls, on cold calling. I think it's one of the most underutilized, under talked about skills on cold calling. Um, I mirror big time. So if I'm calling a guy and he picks up, he's like, "Hello." I'm like, "Hey, Bob, it's Micah." I'll almost like shout at him like that, and he's like, "Oh, what's up?" Or if it's a female and she picks up with a softer tone, I'll be like, "Oh, hey, Susie, Micah here." You know, so
Hello,
like,
this is Micah.
yeah, so like I adapt to who I'm calling in a sense. I know it's like, the funny thing is I think about like politicians that do this, like, "Oh, go," or like changing the way they sound. I can't remember what Hillary said back in 16, or Kamala was saying, they're
Or
changing
yeah,
their accent.
homegirl's got a southern accent depending on where she is in the country. I mean,
Yeah,
good
yeah.
God.
No, I think that's cheesy, to be honest. But I'm just talking about. I don't talk that way in person with them. Just that first, like, but you are going to adapt and kind of change again your packaging a little bit to who you're talking to. But it's not changing who you actually are. You're not flip flopping on what you believe in and all your stances on everything. As a throwing your morals out the compass for some buyer who wants you to go to a strip club if you're not that type of guy. Like that's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying the packaging and the mirroring's like a proven uh, thing that works really well in psychology and in sales. And so I think that can be, there's really I think it'd be very effective on the phones, but I also think it's funny in person. There's some really interesting books I've read on it back in the day on just like whatever someone's body language is, like copying them back. Like if they take a sip of water, you take a sip of water. If they cross their arms, you cross your arms. And all those little things you just don't even think about. But when you are aware of it, you actually implement some of it, you might see some positive impacts. So anyways, I don't know how I got off on
Now,
that tangent, but
I know, sales tip. If they take a sip of water and you don't have water, don't just randomly lift your. Can you imagine doing
why
that?
I was gonna go with dude, I was gonna go with you, but you kept going like this. You kept like you were so weird, man.
Yeah,
Uh
like they leave the meeting and they're like, Jeff, dude, the agent I just met with is the weirdest thing. He just kept like every time I take a sip of my, he'd reach out and grab an imaginary cup and put it to his mouth. Freaking weirdo.
or you meet a guy who's
Uh,
smoking and you're just like you're just the whole time. Uh yeah,
hey man, don't hate the player, hate the game. Oh
do what it
God,
takes.
that's so good. I had one more thing that I thought was like super important, but obviously it wasn't that important because I totally forgot. But I did. Hey, bright and early this morning, 5 a.m. I read the book 5 a.m. Club, and I used to be a super early morning guy before I had kids, and when I was like really hardcore into CrossFit, because the only time I could go was the 5:30 class. And I look back on it, I was the fittest I ever was. I was definitely the happiest I ever was. Like shit was just going good. Now, granted, it was 3 kids, so everything life's so much different. But um, anyways, I just I read the book. I honestly don't know why I even got that stuck in my head, but I read the book and like I'm pumped and ready to go. So my alarm goes off at 5 in the morning. Of course, because I'm expecting it, I start waking up at 3. I wake up at 3:30 and like every 30 minutes because I like don't want to miss it on the first day. I
Yep.
go in there and drink my coffee. I then drink another another cup of coffee, and I'm like nobody's awake, and I'm I'm like pacing in the living room because I'm so caffeinated, like wired up. So I'm ready to kick today in the nuts.
That's the end of the story.
Yeah,
Oh,
that that was the
I thought you
payoff.
were gonna drop. I thought you were gonna say like something crazy happened and screwed your whole morning up, and now you're pissed.
Nope, nothing
Uh,
screwed it up. I'm just here. I'm just loving life. I just, I'm caffeinated. I have already gotten a large amount of stuff done, and I feel like it's midday right now, but we're recording this
Good.
podcast because I've already just been getting shit done. It really
So
is.
yeah,
You have like all this time. My kids don't normally wake up till 6:37, so if I can, I mean, I got a lot done in that 2 hours, so I'm feeling good. That's the
you
payoff.
should.
There is no. That's it.
You should feel proud of yourself, man. That's awesome. I got your text as I was doing my breath work and
Oh
meditating
Jesus
and
Christ!
and praying, and I think it was right before, or right after, because I was like, it was like 5:30 in the morning. I'm like, wait. I just got a text from Trey at 5:31. Like, and I was gonna actually text you back, but I try to stay off my phone basically for the first hour and a half or whatever. So I was like, it was just funny because I was like, something must be going on. Either you read a book or you got motivated over the weekend. But no, I'm a huge proponent of getting up early. My brother, who has 3 kids, so not tier level at 5, but he had told me years ago because he gets up at like 4:15, 4:30 to do his workouts because he does like an hour, kind of not CrossFit, but he does a ton of kettlebell kind of things and
What
just, but he
the
does
heck?
really long. He does really long workouts. What happened?
Did you hear the phone ringing?
No.
I just got a call from Waukesha.
Oh, interesting. That's where I grew up, area.
Yeah,
But
sorry to hear that.
anyways, he was like, yeah, I got to get up this early to work out, otherwise I just won't get to it. And I didn't really understand that when I didn't have kids, and now I do. So, you know, I I shoot for about 5:15. Now we have a baby, so it's kind of interrupting the sleep at night sometimes. That's 5 was pretty easy, but then when you have interrupted sleep, it can be really difficult. But I did put a post out, I think last Friday, on some thoughts on morning routines, and I think it's funny because as much as we want to throw shade at all these people who do these post their morning routines, and we all do the sarcastic, facetious posts like woke up at 4 a.m. and read a book, and then I brushed one tooth, and then whatever. I get they're funny, but I have not ever met a successful person who's not had a morning routine. And so we can crap on those all day long, and maybe they shouldn't post it, doesn't need to be posted, but have a morning routine. If you're listening to this, like, and getting up early is not a bad thing, but one of the things I said is it all starts at night. Like if you're going to, for me personally at least, I can't operate if I'm going to bed at even 11, 10:30. It's hard to get up at 5, man. Like I don't know. Right now it is because I have interrupted sleep, but they say you should be getting 7 hours. So just work backwards from every time you want to get up. But I would try to get to bed so you can get at least 7 hours. Because if I don't get that, then my morning routine kind of sucks. I'm like I'm foggy or I'm just falling asleep as I'm trying to meditate. I'm like dozing off mid meditation or something, mid prayer, mid whatever. So those are my things. But no, I'm happy for you, man. I hope you stick to it. It'll serve you well.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I had always done, and then just with kids, it's just like you get in a habit of just sleeping when you can sleep, and then it just for me progressively worked into just don't get up till damn near 7 o'clock every day.
Yeah.
Uh, and then obviously COVID, I think just I can't speak for anybody else, but at least for me and the few guys that I've worked with, COVID just absolutely destroyed productivity and good habits. And I mean, I think everybody just went nuts there for a while. But
Yeah. Yep.
anyways, it is time to grab the rest of the day by the throat and headlock it into submission. So I'm going to end the podcast here. Anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No, that's all I got. Thanks for listening, everybody, and check us out on YouTube. Keep trying to put stuff out
Yeah,
there, and we appreciate it. Appreciate all your support.
amen. I'll put the link in the show notes and Producer Playbook in the show notes. And also, if you're not a subscriber to the Max Rev newsletter, again, link in show notes. We appreciate it. Have a great week. Micah, give them hell.
You too.
See you. Oh, this is awkward. Okay.
No one's watching right now. You can't hit the unrecord
No, but
button.
they're gonna listen. They're gonna be like, oh Jesus, these guys. All right, stop recording now. Bing.